and would ask you to pass the repeal law. And please support this bill and support repeal. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Kate Cholewa, C-H-O-L-E-W-A, Alliance for Cannabis Science. Can I pass something out, please?
Secretary.
First, I'd like to thank Senator Lewis. We appreciate him bringing this issue to the table. It's hard to remark on, of course, the Greybill, a bill that I have not seen. I also want to express my respect for those of you on this committee who actually support repeal and for whom it's very difficult to talk about regulating something you would prefer did not exist at all. But because we are talking about regulatory bills, I'm going to approach it as such, and I'm not going to talk about vulnerability, I'm not going to talk about illnesses and that sort of thing, but just about systems and economics and how they work and what this bill does. Reading the original bill, it took me many readings over several weeks to really understand what it did, so it would be difficult to say anything about, again, amendments that are not yet on the bill. I think what's important for folks to understand is that people tend to think that there's a chaotic system out there, it's just chaos out there and we need to impose order. And in fact, there is a very structured marketplace out there. It's unregulated, it's not visible, but it's organized, and it's organized out of what was needed by the system as it evolved. So whatever you pass here and whatever you do in here, it's not just creating something, it's also rearranging something. It's reordering a system that's in place. A final thing I wanted to say before getting into some of the systems is that if you all, I don't know if there'll be a premise license in this bill or not, but if you all pass a bill with premises licenses, and this is something I've discussed with other people, if there's a license, a premise that has to be inspected, you are likely going to be getting rid of 65% of those who are in business, just due to electrical requirements and things like that. So if there is something like that, a regulatory bill is actually going to impact a much smaller group of the people than we now consider the group of people. Anyway, so if you're going to pass a regulatory bill, and you're going to be acting on a system, and I don't think most people know what the system is, which is why I've passed out what I've just passed out. There are different players in the system. One is a caregiver. A caregiver is who someone signs up with. So caregivers have cards. They hold the patient cards. There are caregivers who are very personal and intimate with their patients. They know their issues. They know what strains they need. There are also caregivers who are they accumulate cards, and then they have people who grow for them, people who dispense for them, and they play a more oversight position than a direct service type position. But those are both caregivers. If you've got cards, you're a caregiver. That's what caregiver means on the chart. Caregivers also can play an important role in the system. If you look at number 9, which is on the left-hand side, if you've got a caregiver who's not growing themselves, but bringing in plants from other growers, so they are having growers hold their cards, so now you have the permission to grow the plants, and then they're playing a role on behalf of patients to say that quality is not good enough, that price isn't right, so they play an in-between position that actually serves the system. There are brokers in the system, people who say, you've got too much, you need some, and moves it around in the system so it's distributed in a way that serves the patients. I know broker, the word can have a bad name. It exists in the system to provide a service. There's manufacturers. I call these cooks and chemists. Some of them are making baked goods and candies. Some of them are PhDs creating gels and tinctures. Right now, if you see number 10, many of them operate independently. They are contracted with to create their goods, which means they own any innovations they're able to generate. I think under Senate Bill 154, they would have to work under someone else's jurisdiction. They would no longer own their innovations in non-smokables. You've got contract growers on the right side of the page. They don't have cards. They're being contracted with to grow. They're holding cards for somebody else. And Mr. Chairman, I know I'm giving complicated information. Is it all right to go on and give the current situation?
Well, yeah.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to check in.
You're doing fine subject-wise.
Okay.
Time-wise is a different matter.
All right, so patients. Now, where are patients on this chart? If you look under wherever you've got a caregiver, think of they have patients. So patient dollars fuel the system. So that's how dollars are going to go in and circulate in the system, is through the caregiver. So business relationships are built with cards. If you're going to make tinctures for me, you need to be able to be holding those cards that are mine. If you're a contract grower, you're holding cards. If you're a contract grower, you're the patient of the person you're supplying the cannabis to. These relationships are set up because people are trying to stay legal. I mean, it's the card game, and I think the card game doesn't work, and I would hope you all would consider getting rid of it, because it's the way of people have had to jerry-rig the system. And I think under Senate Bill 154, if it were to pass as constructed, it would just be, again, these cards being used for purposes that don't serve patients. Anyways, the point, this is an organized system. It serves its objective, which is to deliver a product to a market. It's not regulated and it's not visible, and I think those are the problems. So when you rearrange the flow, so now Senate Bill 154 is going to rearrange the flow. First of all, patient cards can now be owned by a business. Businesses can be bought and sold, which means now patients are commodities that can be bought and sold. I know this works for businesses. It even makes sense. The problem isn't about evil businesses trying to own patients. It's about the card system just not serving anyone. The bill provisions, they call it a grower, but what it really is a boss. It allows the person who can get the grower's license now to conduct all these activities you see on this chart. And if you don't have a grower's license because you're not cultivating cannabis, because that's what it requires, so you see manufacturer number 10, they don't get to operate anymore. You see a caregiver without plants, they don't get to operate anymore if they can't get a grower's license. So now instead of a manufacturer saying, I charge $30 an hour, you've got the grower bosses saying we pay $15. Instead of a caregiver negotiating prices and quality, that's determined by those who are sitting in that chair. And we just don't think this is a quality-driven system. It drives consolidation based on how you're positioned in the economy right now, as opposed to quality. And some of these people may try to band together. They wouldn't last long. I won't take the time wide to tell you, but if you want to ask me during questions, I will. The chart where there's a lot of activity, that's not disorganization, that's dynamism, that's dollars turning over in communities. If you look at the chart where consolidation happens, patient dollars go to the grower sends money back down in wages, infrastructure development for their business, and then out. Just like it's not because it's cannabis, it's any commodity. Money goes out to the next horizon, maybe Arizona. Portfolios, it's out of the economy. So when you consolidate in this manner, you're hurting communities in terms of they've got to deal with the issue, but they don't get the money. Patients, it drives the talent out. There'll be manufacturers who leave, drives down the quality, and it doesn't serve legislators if you end up with a few consolidated businesses. I don't know. To me, when you've got a few industries with a few people running it, or you've got government bureaucracy, what you've got is an impediment to getting good information. At least that's what I've seen up here. So anyways, consolidation tends to be a trend. We don't mind about consolidation as long as it's quality driven. So whatever you do, we just ask that you don't hand this to the higher bidder or consolidate thinking it's control when it's really losing control. We think it's great that the money goes to the seniors. They're going to be the ones who benefit from cannabis-based medicine in the next 10 years. I just hope you'll consider these things in your deliberations. Thank you.